guys, how you doing? It's Tom Breeze here from tombreeze.com, and today we have something very, very special. We have David Shephard with us today.
Hi everyone.
And I'm going to ask David a few questions about what he thinks about public speaking, get some advice and get some tips from him as well. So, David, thank you very much for coming across.
Pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me to your house.
Thanks for being here.
And I suppose, do you want to kind of give me a bit of a history, a bit of background to you and what you do as well?
Yeah. So my original background was in IT, in computers. Did a degree in electronics.
Okay.
Worked in the city in the late 80s for Reuters. But then, 1990, thought I want to go and set up my own business. So I bought a franchise for a management consultancy firm, and I think I was very green.
Okay.
Because I made a complete unmitigated disaster of it. And wound up something like 65,000-70,000 pounds in the hole as a result of that over 2 years. But the thing that it gave me was that's where I discovered NLP.
Fantastic.
And because part of the training to be a consultant, there was one day on NLP, and I thought I'd never heard of it before. Well, this is fantastic. And I said to the trainer, where can I find out more? And he said, there's only one book that I know of, which was Tony Robbins' Unlimited Power, which you couldn't buy in a shop. I had to go to a mail order company, and it arrived in brown paper wrapping so that nobody knew you'd bought a weird NLP.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Self-help books or anything like that.
Yeah. And completely devoured it. Thought it was brilliant. And from that, got interested in coaching. So I started doing some coaching work, and got trained as a coach. And this is in 1991. Now coaching is everywhere.
Yeah.
But in 1991, everybody thought you were mad. But more and more, I was finding that it was NLP that I was using with my coaching clients. And 1992, I had a slight change, and decided that I wanted to do firewalk seminars. Not much of a difference, and that was my first presentation. Launched myself as a presenter and a trainer, and it was awful. It was a huge disaster. 100 people for a firewalk. And the thing with firewalks is you've got to get it right.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't got it right,
the
end of it is like it's not worth thinking about. So I'd read both of Tony Robbins' books by now, Unlimited Power and Awaken the Giant Within. Thought I knew everything there was to know about NLP. Didn't bother preparing, didn't do anything. Got up on stage in front of 100 people and ran out of anything to say after 20 minutes. I got another 4.5 hours to fill. So I thought, I'll do a demonstration, work with somebody around limiting beliefs and that kind of thing. Never done a demo before, didn't have a clue what I was doing. That was a disaster as well. I got people in the audience shouting out, do this or do that. And before the demo was finished, the lady I got on stage asked for her money back because she said she felt worse now than she did when she arrived.
That's brilliant.
And at that point I went, okay, there's more to presenting than meets the eye. And I need to know more about NLP, because I hadn't even done an NLP training at this point in time. I was getting in front of an audience, started teaching stuff I got from books.
So this is before you did any courses or anything like that?
Nothing.
I see.
Nothing at all. So in 1993, it was May 1993, did my practitioner training with Tad James, who's now a very good friend of mine, out in California, and I was blown away. Totally blown away. And during the training, whilst I was out in California, I phoned back to the UK and said, right, to my business partner at the time, right, we're setting up an NLP training company. That's the Performance Partnership, it's still a company that I've got now. And I went to Tad and I said, okay Tad, I want to run practitioner trainings like this one, which is a 7-day program with pre-study, completely different than what anybody else was doing. And I said, I want to run these programs in the UK under license. What do I need to do? And he said, well, nobody's ever asked me before, so give me a couple of days. And he came back to me a couple of days later and said, you need to do this, the whole thing. So, okay. I had no clue how I was going to do it. So I've still no money, at all. Lost everything for the business disaster. But that's what I'm going to do.
Mm.
Set a goal of becoming a trainer of NLP within a year, and I became a trainer of NLP May 1994. I mean, spooky. I mean, it was virtually to the day 1 year.
Interesting.
And I've been doing it ever since. Yeah. So the first practitioner training I ran was in '94, and I've been doing three practitioners, 2 master practitioners. Then I started training with TAD and for TAD in the US. So we delivered trainers training together, NLP trainers training. Taught Huna out in Hawaii with them.
Yeah, of course.
And I think, as I said, since 1993, I've been up in front of an audience of some kind around about 200 days a year.
So you know your stuff.
Yeah. And then Ted and I wrote the book Presenting Magically.
Of course, that's good.
Which has become kind of like an industry-leading book. Because at the time, nobody had written a book about how to use NLP as a presenter or a trainer.
Exactly.
And so we co-authored that book and published it. So that's a big seller. And that was based on the back of the Presenting Magically 3-day training that we'd been running for a while.
Okay, fantastic.
So that's the kind of that history, I train NLP, I present, motivational speaker, coach.
A whole lot. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's great, fantastic, I love it.
It's interesting because when I first did my NLP, when I was first getting into the area, I obviously used a lot of your materials for my practitioner course.
Right.
And that was just kind of blew me away completely, because as soon as I started listening to, there's a load of CDs at the start of the course, I was listening to that, and it all just started making so much sense in the way that we think, the way that we feel, the way that we behave. And I didn't really think about it using it in any particular area. I think that really helped me to begin with, because I just was soaking up information, which is great. And since then I've focused much more on public speaking, and that's what led me on to the Presenting Magically with yourself and Tad.
Yeah.
And as soon as I read that, I was like, right, this is almost where I want to go with this, because it just made so much sense, which is so interesting.
I think the application of NLP in presenting and training is just amazing.
Yeah.
The things that you can do are unbelievable. And it's starting to creep in now. I don't know if you've seen it, but somebody put an article on the web, which is how Barack Obama used Ericksonian hypnosis and NLP techniques to win the presidential election.
Right. Okay.
And they've mapped out every single Milton model language pattern, and how he does anchoring. An interesting one, because he anchors himself to Abraham Lincoln,
Right. Okay.
Martin Luther King,
Brings it always back in there. Yeah.
John F. Kennedy. All taken as being great Americans, and great speakers and great leaders. The other thing that's interesting though is they do also have something else in common. They were all assassinated. So I'm thinking, I'd be careful about anchoring this, But if people like Obama are using NLP in their presentations, I've got a very trustworthy source that Tony Blair was trained in NLP as well.
Yeah.
And if you look at his presentation style when he first became a public figure, and then look at him now, unrecognisable. So if people like that are using NLP in presenting, then it's time to start learning NLP as a presenter, most definitely.
Yeah.
Because it works.
That's the thing, especially with Barack Obama as well. I remember seeing on YouTube, there was like a video of him, let's say about 5 years ago.
Right.
And there was a question that was fired at him saying, do you think you'll ever get to the White House?
Right.
And he said, no, I can't do anything like that, that's not me.
Really?
It's really interesting watching that, because he was a nervous presenter. He kind of used to, even during his campaign, he found that he was stumbling across words when it was live, when he got questions from the audience. It was live. I've seen him a few times where he was stumbling, but you don't see that as a president now, do you? He just straight away just knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
And obviously that comes from a lot of practice.
Yeah.
But likewise, I'm sure that he's been trained specifically in different skills.
He must have been. He must have been to look at the degree at which he's using it. he has to be trained specifically in how to use NLP as a presenter. But it's very, very powerful. Not only as a means of structuring your presentations and delivering your presentations, but also, as you know, your area that you're specialising in, having people overcome their fear of presenting and get rid of their nerves. I mean, it's so fast that a very, very, very fearful presenter can become a confident presenter in a matter of hours, if not less than that.
No, of course, yeah.
Which is remarkable if you think about it.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant, especially when you look at a live demonstration or something along those lines, where someone has a phobia or something like that, and immediately they can get out of that mindset, change the way they're thinking about it completely. And as you say, it's I find it's interesting because so many people will learn to feel negative emotions very quickly and remember those particular times. We don't necessarily remember the positive emotions and learn to remember them as well. And it's interesting because a lot of people have this misconception that change doesn't happen quickly. And
they do.
And I think it's starting to change, but there's still a big thing of, well, no, you've really got to get used to doing it. And but sometimes it's just changing the mindset, and immediately you see a difference in people.
The cultural thing, I think, is that change is going to be hard work. It's going to take a long time. It's not going to be a comfortable process. And that was really what turned me on about NLP, was the fact that it's easy, it's simple, it's comfortable, and it's quick. One of the things I say on all my trainings is, that with NLP, there's no suffering provided. So if you want to suffer, you have to bring your own. That's why I love it. And it takes, it is an art, but it's also a science. So I like the fact that you go, okay, if you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, this will happen. So it's very procedural, which I love. I think it takes the chance out of it.
Exactly, yeah. That's interesting because I think there's a lot of clients will be watching this now. I teach a lot of people the format system. So obviously why, what, how, what if. And people often change those words to match what really goes on in their minds, I suppose. But those 4 points, for a lot of people, just kind of structure the whole presentation. It means they can speak off the cuff, but it sort of looks really artistic almost when they're speaking. But it's just kind of ingrained in the voice. I certainly know that whenever I speak off the cuff, I'm using a system of some sort, which makes it artistic, but you're using a science behind it almost, which is nice.
I would say that the format system is probably one of the most useful things I've learned since I started studying NLP. And I learned it on trainers training. And on presenting magically, the ultimate goal that I give people is, imagine this, you've got the presentation opportunity of your lifetime or your career. And somebody says to you, will you do a presentation on this particular thing? And you're thinking, wow, what an opportunity I've got. You say, yeah, certainly, when would you like me to do it? Well, they're just finishing coffee, how about in 5 minutes' time? And in that instant, you just know that you'll be able to do a perfectly structured presentation. So it works for every single person in the group. And you can wow them with no preparation. And the key to that is, one is obviously your state of mind when you get in there, which I know is something you teach as well. And then the other is a format system. And you stand up, okay, this is what I'm going to talk to you about. This is why you'd want it. Let me give you the information. How about how to use it? And what will happen if you don't, and what will happen if you do? Thank you and good night. And your presentation's done. It's amazing. I use it in every single thing I do.
Exactly, I don't think it's ever failed me. Every time I've ever presented, people just click straight away. And the thing I like about it, because I present to different people with different mindsets and different cultures, and it just fits in with people. At some level, they're going to go, got it.
Truly multicultural. And I've taught people the format system from every landmass around the world. And I haven't had anybody say, that wouldn't work in my language, that wouldn't work in my country, that wouldn't work in my culture, that wouldn't work in my background. It's truly universal, which is amazing.
That's why I use it, and I think that's why it's so effective as well. And just the way that you go through it as well, especially with the why, so many people forget to do that. I see so many people saying, right, here's my presentation today, this is what we're going to do. That's just an agenda straight away what. And to give them any sort of why, even if it's just one sentence. So for example, if someone's doing an update at a meeting. Sometimes there's not a huge why there, but just stick something in there. People then just like, I know I'm here.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm interested now.
Yeah, exactly.
Solve me. Yeah.
Exactly. Get some level of buy-in,
Yeah.
and as a result, the presentation seems to go so much more smoothly, I suppose.
We've got a motivated audience.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, there's something in it for them. Whereas, you know, so many business presentations, particularly, are just all information.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how many presentations I went to where up comes a slide, and it's an Excel spreadsheet that you need to sit there with a pair of binoculars to read the information on it, and then the presenter just takes you through the spreadsheet, and then they wonder why everybody's fallen asleep.
Public reading.
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. Yeah. Because interestingly, we got hired by PricewaterhouseCoopers, Financial Management Consulting Group.
Okay, yeah.
So you can pretty much guess what kind of presentations they were giving traditionally. And we were hired with the brief of make our consultants more interesting and more entertaining.
Okay, yeah.
Which was you know, an interesting challenge.
Yeah.
But one of the guys who's a partner at the time of PricewaterhouseCoopers suddenly has this revelation, and he goes, I've just realised that just because what I'm talking about is boring, it doesn't mean that I have to be.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah.
Light bulbs go on, you know. But yeah, so I mean, very, very simple. I mean, just doing that one thing takes somebody's presentation to the next level.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that I work with a lot of accountants, and when I do, I find that if you just stick in a why section to begin with, you get so much more buy-in, and it makes the whole presentation, you're ready to listen to it. So, for example, if they say, right, we're going to talk about your tax return, we're going to talk about income tax, we're going to talk about this, you're like, okay.
It's working already.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Whereas if they say, right, I've got a way of you saving 10 grand this week, or something, you'd be like,
okay.
Yeah, exactly. What do I need to learn right now?
Yeah.
And you're ready for that section then.
And how many more of those tips have you got?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, very true. Talking about tips, actually I want to find out a little bit about what are the biggest problems do you feel that people have at the moment with public speaking, and how can they start changing the way that they view public speaking, I suppose?
Right. Well, I think the fear thing, and fear, I always think of it as being like an acronym, false evidence appearing real.
Okay, yeah.
And is there really anything to be absolutely petrified about getting up in front of an audience? No, there isn't. Yet, from research in the US, it's the number one fear. So the more people fear public speaking than fear death.
Yeah.
Here in the UK, apparently it's the number two fear. The number one fear in the UK is spiders.
Yeah.
So imagine getting in front of dying on stage in front of an audience of spiders. Absolute worst nightmare, I suppose. But that's fear is the big thing. Now, as we were talking about before with the guy from Microsoft, he used that to become a director of Microsoft, because whenever anybody came into his department where he was working, every now and again said, we need somebody to go and speak, do a presentation to this client. We need somebody to do a presentation at this particular conference or exhibition. He said, I never saw a room clear so quick. Everybody was underneath their desks, out in the kitchen making a coffee. And he said, even though at the time it scared him, he started volunteering. Everybody else in the department thanked him for it. Oh, thank you, mate. You've rescued us, it means we don't have to do it. And though, he said, whenever there was a promotion in another area of Microsoft, he was the person that everybody knew. He was in their minds because he was always there to present. And he said, out of all the things that he'd done in his career in Microsoft, he said, getting up and presenting was the thing that enabled him to become a director of Microsoft in probably his early 30s. Which, of course, as soon as you become a director of Microsoft, you're immediately a multimillionaire because of the shares that you give them. And he put it down to presenting. So if you want to get a competitive edge in business, learn to overcome your fear. Just so then you'll go for it.
Exactly.
Put yourself up there, you know. I was petrified of presenting when I first started. I mean, for some reason, I was drawn to it because I wanted to do, NLP training and personal development and things. And though, paradoxically, it scared the shit out of me. So then it was NLP and timeline therapy that enabled me to overcome that to the point now where I just get up in front of an audience and do my thing.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to realise is, a lot of people see masterful presenters and they automatically think, oh, they're a natural. And if you're not a born natural presenter, don't even bother starting. And I mean, there are naturals. Let's put it that way. But I think the great thing about NLP is that it's modelled people who aren't naturals, so that people who aren't naturals can become one.
Yeah.
So absolutely everything that I do on stage, whether I'm doing motivational speaking, whether I'm doing training, whatever, I learnt to do every single bit of it. None of it came natural at all. That first presentation, that firewalk, I mean, I was so wooden. I was probably sponsored by the Forestry Commission. And it's a firewalk, it's supposed to be exciting and motivational, and it wasn't.
So you were at that unconscious incompetence stage where you just...
Yes, absolutely.
Didn't know how crap you were at the time.
Yes, half an hour later, I got to the conscious incompetence.
Yes, actually.
Okay, let's take a break. David, we've only just had one. We're having another one.
Yeah, we've got a few more coming as well.
Off.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just, overcome the fear. There isn't anything to be fearful of. And that isn't to say that people who find presenting scary, that the fear isn't real for them. It is. And, in reality, it's a completely irrational fear.
Yeah.
So overcome that and then start doing it. And then learn, I think that the absolute best tool for presenters is to learn NLP.
Yeah, of course.
And then the other thing I think is, linked in with the natural thing, is it really doesn't matter where you are right now. The only thing that matters is where do you want to be. Yeah. And my absolute belief from teaching people this stuff for over 16 years is that everybody's got what it takes.
Yeah.
The only question is, are they willing to do what it takes? And the people who are willing to do what it takes will get to wherever they want to go.
That's so true.
And that's not just in presenting, that's just in life in general. Yeah.
It's interesting that, because I know that whenever I work with clients, there's a big thing about motivation. It's either what you're looking to achieve or what you're trying to get rid of. And if you're always trying to get rid of a fear, it's going to hang around just like that classic blue tree thing.
Yeah,
don't think of a blue tree. Yeah. The only thing you have done is think of a blue tree. Yeah. And that's, I think, is so powerful for some clients, because as soon as I say, right, instead of thinking about all the problems you have right now, let's think about what you really do want.
Yeah. What do you want to be instead?
What do you want to be instead, exactly. And as soon as you start thinking about that, it's almost like all the anxieties, all those fears just seem to almost start disappearing very quickly. Yeah. Because you're focusing on something you should be doing, as opposed to what you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think a lot of people, they get up in front of the audience and they're nervous, and then they look out at the audience, and no matter how many people are there, and they find the one person that they perceive isn't enjoying it.
Yes.
And then they delete everybody else.
Yeah.
And they just focus on this one person, and they mind read completely that this one person is hating their presentation. But in actual fact, it could have been, what they had for lunch,
Yes.
And they're really focusing on keeping it inside. But this person's now deleted everybody who's enjoying it, distorted this one person who's got indigestion to hating it, and then they go on a real downward spiral.
I see that all the time.
And so it's just a matter of shifting the mindset, and then shifting the spiral, going on an upward spiral.
Yeah.
Delete the people that you think are not enjoying it, and focus on the people that look like they are. I mean, they might not be.
Exactly. Is it a grimace? Is it a grimace or is it a smile? It better be a smile. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just as if it was a smile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Very true. Okay, good.
So the top tip, I think, again, we said format system. brilliant for what I've learned. The next one would be this major frame of NLP, which is acting as if.
That's right.
So people said to me, David, how did you become a master trainer of NLP so quickly? And I said, well, what I did was I acted as if I was one, long enough to convince somebody else. And I've been doing it ever since. That's the different ways of putting it. Fake it till you make it. Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Milton Erickson, you can pretend you can do anything and then master it.
Yeah.
If you can act as if you're a great presenter long enough, then your audience will start to act as if you're a great presenter as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you become memorable.
Exactly. It's interesting. It's very true. As soon as you stand in front of people, people will instantly give you credibility, authority, as long as you can do a half decent job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they'll instantly, and everything, then they'll be distorting you in a positive light. Yeah. Anything that you do badly, they'll be like, well, it's off the cuff.
Yeah.
Or they'll be viewing you with such authority that they'll say, okay, well, they obviously know their stuff, they know the material. And that's kind of the great thing about presenting, is that you don't even need to be an absolute outstanding speaker. I mean, it's great if you are. But just to take that first step is normally enough to get them the credibility, the respect, the authority that they're looking for. And as a result, they've got that branding in other people's eyes. Of, that's the person that knows their stuff, that's the person that's got that stuff. And again, promotions, making bigger deals, whatever it might be, it becomes infinitely easier, I suppose.
I think the other thing as well with that is, which a lot of people, I find, there's the fear thing. Then the next thing that people have as their biggest challenge is that they don't think it's okay to be themselves when they get up in front of an audience. They think they've got to be somebody else, which creates stress straight away. So one of the, the fear. The next thing that I work with people around is becoming them totally themselves in front of an audience. And as soon as an audience realises that the person in front is just going, this is all there is. There isn't anything else. If this isn't good enough, there's nothing I can do. This is just me. Then audiences become totally forgiving. So you don't have to get everything right.
No.
Whereas as soon as they think there's some, that you're pretending to be somebody else, or that you're not okay being you, I think audiences really want to find out who the presenter is. And it's what a friend of mine, Richard, says that he comes across a lot of people in business, and he describes them as big front, small back. As in, they put on this big, front, but really, as soon as you start scratching the surface, there's nothing behind it. And I think audiences get curious about that, and so they start challenging the presenter. But if you're kind of like, small front, big back, or just, this is all there is no more, then they sense that.
Exactly.
So does that mean that you've got to make yourself completely vulnerable? Yeah. But paradoxically, it's the way that you become totally safe in front of an audience.
So true.
By making yourself vulnerable, going, look, this is it.
Accepting it.
This is all I can give.
Yeah.
And guess what? When you're up there and you go, this is all I can give, it's all that anybody wants.
Exactly.
They couldn't actually ask for more.
You get so much more rapport as well, don't you? So much better. I know that when I gave a big speech recently, I was a little bit nervous beforehand, and considering I help people with their anxieties, I've got to get it right, if that makes sense.
No pressure.
Exactly. So I stood up and started speaking about what I did, but just beforehand, unknowingly to them, a certain friend of mine, James Lavers, I was standing with him beforehand. He just kind of held me on the shoulder and goes, "Hey mate, really have fun with this. Just be yourself and really enjoy it." Right. And immediately I just felt, yeah, that's so true. And it's weird how sometimes you need someone in authority or someone in a position of authority beforehand to tell you something to let you know you can actually experience it like that, give you an excuse almost. But it's so true. It reminded me of some of the things I used to remember about really enjoying public speaking and not getting het up about all the things that could go wrong. And to be fair, if they go wrong, all the better sometimes, because it makes you look more natural anyway. It makes you look more human.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you real.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing that people want. So they go, actually, this person's just the same as me. They're a human being. They're real. They make mistakes. They get some things right and other things right. But then they also tend to look up to you because of the fact that you're on the stage and they're not.
Yeah.
And they go, you know, I could never even get up on the stage, let alone present.
Yeah.
So it gives you, as you say, it gives you a lot of kudos, a lot of credibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably, you know, a major life skill to get. Even, you know, I get people coming on presenting magically. Their why for being there is that, you know, their best friends ask them to be best man.
Right. Yeah.
And they come and do a 3-day training in, you know, to be able to present at a wedding.
Yeah.
And then they're using satire categories and opening loops and all kinds of things, you know.
That's so true.
Have problems getting them off. You know, you're only supposed to speak for 5 minutes.
Trying to frantically close their loops as they're finishing up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. And also, because I was speaking with David beforehand, and you gave a great tip, which I thought was just fantastic, about the about presenting without PowerPoint.
Oh, yes.
Which is interesting. I'd love you to
Yeah.
tell the guys at home more about that.
Yeah, so again, it comes down to the presenting magically I was doing with Microsoft. And the director said, and I thought this was amazing, he said, if ever I hear of any of you using PowerPoint in your presentations, I'll fire you. And this is inside of Microsoft, you know. And then he gave his why, which I never thought about it this way. He said, you know, there is this thing called death by PowerPoint, which I think we've all experienced. And then he said, and also, using the Flipchart, one, it looks spontaneous, even if it's not. So, you know, you might have planned out every single Flipchart that you're going to do, but as soon as you walk over to the Flipchart and start actually writing it, so rather than having them pre-prepared, you know, pre-prepared in here, we start writing on the Flipchart, so that immediately people think you're spontaneous, and therefore they have the belief that you really know your stuff, because you can do this on the fly.
Yeah.
And he said, whereas with PowerPoint, anybody could have put your slides together. They could have been put together by another expert. You might not know anything that you're talking about. Whereas Flipchart, immediately, you know, even with a Flipchart, you don't necessarily need to know what you're talking about because somebody else could have prepared your Flipchart. You know?
Exactly.
But that's not what people perceive. They go, wow, this person's, you know, spontaneous, off the cuff, expert, straight over to the Flipchart, which I'd never thought about it that way before.
No.
So I mean, I do use PowerPoint because I think it's useful, and I think, you know, a lot of people expect PowerPoint these days, and if you don't, they think you've just stepped off the ark or something.
Yeah.
But I always use a Flipchart as well to give the spontaneity, and also enables you to get greater rapport, I think, with the audience.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, the other downside to a certain extent with PowerPoint is that we're so anchored to looking at screens.
Yeah.
TV, laptops, computer screens, that as soon as you project your PowerPoint slides, everybody starts staring at the slides rather than looking at you.
Becomes a memorable slideshow as opposed to a memorable speaker.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting one. And you know, I think a lot of people though hide behind their slides.
Yeah.
So again, reducing the slides, or even getting rid of them altogether. Sometimes I do things when I don't have them at all.
Do you know that?
You've got nothing to hide behind. That makes you vulnerable? Yes, it does. But if you're okay with that, then you know that's when your presentations can really come to life.
Yeah.
And they change in the spur of the moment, which you know, keeps it real, makes it more entertaining, and has people remember you rather than just what you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a very important thing from a branding point of view.
One thing I remember you said in your book as well, presenting magically. Go and get it. Where can they get it? Is on Amazon or?
Yeah, we get on Amazon. Amazon.co.uk.
Yeah.
My teeth not fitting properly. Also, we've got it on our website, performancepartnership.com. We've also got the audio-video product of Presenting Magically as well.
Of course,
which is 6 CDs and 4 DVDs, I think. Also available on that site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to get great at NLP but great at presenting, that's definitely a great product to get.
Yeah.
But also one of the things that I remember reading from the book and studying was was about kind of being yourself on stage, but also allowing yourself to be yourself in terms of becoming completely unconscious, like almost like knowing your stuff, knowing who you are, presenting, because you go into this kind of state of flow, or the state of what the Americans call in the zone. But you get into that place where everything just seems to flow and everything seems to come together, and you remember different things, you remember to add them in at certain times, and that's a brilliant state to be in.
Yeah, I think if you're doing a presentation, prepare. You've got to. I mean, now I don't know how many. I was working it out. I think I've delivered something like 60 or 70 NLP practitioner trainings. Do I prepare before a practitioner training now? No, I don't. I've kind of like practiced it a bit,
Yes.
But the first practitioner training I did, I prepared it. So definitely prepare. Then what I do is I hone it all down to the point where I could put, let's say it's a keynote presentation, half an hour is a typical length. Then I can put it on a 4x5 card. With the format, why, a couple of bullet points, what, this is what I want to get across, whatever. Put it all on that. And that's all I take with me. I don't, even if I've written the script, I deliberately don't take it with me, because it's almost like a security blanket. And then, just before I go on, I'll look at the card, and then I tear it up and put it in the bin. Tearing it up's important, in case you're tempted to get it back out. And then you just trust your unconscious mind. And you'll come off of the stage and you go, I forgot to mention that. Can't believe that. But you are the only person who's expecting to cover it anyway. They don't know. And also, though, you'll cover something that you weren't expecting, which is just, I think, that your unconscious mind picks up this unique audience you've got in front of you, and it brings something to the front which you hadn't actually planned to cover. And this was something I got from Steve McDermott, a very good friend of mine, motivational speaker of the year for 2009. I've just had a look.
Fantastic. That's like 4
years
years now.
4 or 5 years,
yeah.
It was 2002, 2003, 2007, 2009.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. And he does a lot of modelling with stand-up comedians. So one of the questions that he asked them, which is a good question really, he said, what do you do if you tell a joke and nobody laughs? Which has got to be the worst nightmare as a stand-up comedian. And all of them said the same thing. They said, act as if it wasn't meant to be funny. Because there's only you that knew it was meant to be a joke. So, what do you do if something you had planned doesn't work? Well, act as if that's what it was supposed to do. Because there's only one person who knows what you're going to cover or what your intention is, and that's you. So it doesn't matter if you forget something or miss something out, because the audience weren't expecting it anyway. Which is another, I guess, top tip.
Fantastic.
From I said I got that from Steve McDermott.
Interesting.
Good guy.
My tip, if I ever try and say, I tend to not to try and say jokes, but if I because of that problem, maybe I'll learn that now. But one of the things that I know, that if I ever say something which was meant to be funny, and the audience kind of knew it was meant to be funny, at that point what I normally do is just take the mick out of myself, and it's being happy to do that, and that's again being yourself, allowing yourself to be comfortable doing that. But I'll normally say something like, okay, do not use this joke, and I write it on the Flipchart as well, do not use this joke to business owners ever again. Something like that. And then you normally get a laugh at some level.
Absolutely. I think the difference, stand-up comedian and trainer is obviously a lot of stand-up comedians get the people in the audience are the brunt of the joke. Whereas as a trainer in the main, the brunt of the joke needs to be yourself.
Yes, exactly.
I think, everybody is naturally funny. You go out for a drink with friends and you telling each other funny stories of, guess what happened to me earlier this week, And so everybody is funny. All they've got to do is believe it. And so, if you're down the pub telling funny stories to your friends, then you can do the same thing on stage. It doesn't need to be about jokes necessarily. It's just a funny aspect of something, or a funny view on things.
Exactly.
Just to put a little bit of humour in. So I think the old days of chalk and talk have gone. Even in business training, I think now people are wanting to have an element of motivation.
Yes.
an element of entertainment, an element of inspiration, rather than just the transfer of information.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so. I know that when I go to watch people present, or even if I see any level of presentation, at some level I do want to be entertained.
Yeah.
I want to come out of it and think, actually that's quite good fun.
Yeah.
Because then, again, you remember them. That's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the material as such, it's who's giving that material, which is sometimes even more important.
I think so, because, you know, if you look at how much the world has changed, I mean, I was just thinking 1993 Performance Partnership. We didn't have a website. There was a reason for that. There wasn't an internet.
Yeah. So, 93, there wasn't much going on, was there?
Exactly. So, you know, look at how much that's changed over 16 years, you know. But now, if you want information, you don't even need to leave your house.
No.
You can get pure information off of the internet, the World Wide Web. So I'm very aware of that. You know, if somebody's coming and doing, for instance, a master practitioner training with me, that's 2 weeks, and pretty much everything that's in that 2 weeks you could get off the internet. So you've really got to start asking yourself, why is somebody going to sit in front of me for 2 weeks? Yes, there's your own kind of expression of it. Yes, there's the exercises, there's the coaching, there's the opportunity for Q&A. I think it's got to be more than that.
Yes.
And, you know, that more of it is, one, enabling them to get access to you, so that, you know, they get to know you. But also it's the fun, it's the entertainment, the inspiration, the motivation, which, you know, yes, you can get that to a certain extent off the internet, with, like, you know, the massive now of access to stuff through YouTube, for instance. And there's still nothing quite like going to a live motivational speaking gig or something like that. I mean, I love it. I go to as many as I can, just so that I can model people.
Yes.
I mean, that's the other thing, you know, top tip. Go and look at great presenters.
Exactly, yeah.
And again, that's the brilliant advantage of NLP, is that it means you can go around and see these presenters, see these trainers, and work out what it is that they're doing, so that you can replicate it.
Exactly.
And then, you know, obviously now there's this you know, website like TED.
Oh, TED's
Which has
fantastic.
got, you know, the greats, the big people in the world that you might not normally get the chance to see. You can see them and then start modelling. You know, okay, that was really fantastic. Now, why did it work? What were they doing? And then how can I use the same thing in my next presentation?
Exactly. I know that my mind has changed completely. Now whenever I see something amazing, I straight away go, how can I use that?
Yeah.
How can I grab that?
Yeah,
there's a story in there, there's a metaphor in there, there's something in there that I can use. And it's funny, as soon as you make yourself privy to this sort of information, I suppose, like how to present, and you start watching things like news reporters, and you think, gosh, what are they doing? How are they doing it? So you actually are always engaged.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
even if it's a story that I don't really want to know about, it's engaging for some reason.
There's always something there that you can take from it.
Exactly, yeah. And I noticed that with all my clients as well. I'm sure it's the same for yourself. As soon as you see a client and they go back out there and they're actually using the material, but they see other people using the material in different ways, and they start learning off each other, that's the best.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fantastic way of learning.
Brilliant.
Good. So we've got loads of top tips there. Is there anything else?
More than I was thinking, actually, when you said top tips, I was thinking, oh, okay. What other? But yeah, I mean, it's not specifically just about presenting, but it's. I was speaking at the American Board of Hypnotherapy conference in Las Vegas earlier in the year. And
I should mention that David is the president of the American Board of NLP.
American Board of NLP. Yeah. And the American Board of NLP is part of the American Board of Hypnotherapy.
Okay, understand.
So it's the American Board of Hypnotherapy and American Board of NLP conference, which is in Las Vegas each year. And so I was speaking over there, and a very good friend of mine had gone over with me as well, Peter Strachan. And so we went out for a drink one evening after we finished. We went to the MGM Grand, which is just mind-boggling in itself, because it's so big, you know. We used to have our offices in Chiswick, and I worked out that Chiswick would fit inside the MGM Grand.
That's brilliant.
This is just one hotel, 5,000 bedrooms. And so we were having a couple of drinks, and I went off to the gents, and there was a shoe shine. And I'd never had a shoe shine before, so I thought, oh, I'll get my shoe shined. So I walk over to this to the shoe shine guy, and the first thing he says to me is, "Hello, London boy." And I haven't said anything at this point in time. So how did you know I was from London? He said, everywhere in the world has a certain look. And he said, you've got the London look. So he said, as soon as anybody walks in here, I know immediately where they're from. So I'm curious now, you know. I'm sitting there on the big chairs, you know, feet on the things. And what I discovered was that when you're having your shoe shine, it's a little bit like Peter Kay's version of what you do when you get in the back of a minicab.
Okay.
Because the first thing you ask them is, have you been busy?
Yes, it's so true.
And then the next one is, what time are you on till? You know?
Yes.
So I said, what time are you on till? And he goes, $400. And so I thought, oh, he didn't understand what time you're on till, you know, with my English accent. So I said, no. What time do you finish tonight? $400. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I finish when I've made $400. He said, sometimes I'll go home by 10. Other times I'll be here until 6 o'clock in the morning. But I finish when I've made $400. I thought, what a great way to think about goals, you know. So it's like you keep going until you've achieved it.
Yeah.
So I start doing some maths, you know. I said, oh, how many? His name was Ricky. I said, how many days a week do you work, Ricky? He goes, I work 6 nights a week. And then Sunday, I spend all Sunday with my daughter, who now lives with my ex-wife. And so I'm going, this guy's doing nearly $2,500 a week, nearly $10,000 a month, cleaning shoes.
He's doing all right.
Which, you know, okay, wow, I've just been with all these highly trained NLP trainers, hypnotherapists, all this kind of stuff. And they're all going on about how bad the economy is.
Yeah.
And now they're not making as much money as they were before. And there's a guy cleaning shoes down the road, making a small fortune, you know.
Yeah.
And so, I'd finished the whole thing. I said, so how much do I owe you for the shoe shine? And he said, how much do you think it's worth? Which I thought, interesting question. So I said, well, they've never looked as good. I mean, they look fantastic. So, you know, I would have thought $30, $40 for the shoe shine. But that story that you've just given me, I said, that's priceless. Ricky, you're going home early tonight.
Yeah.
And then the other question I asked him, I said, because you know, quite often when people are doing really well, we've got a natural thing in our culture where we go, what's the catch?
Exactly.
So I'm going, what's the catch? So I go to Ricky and said, Ricky, hang on a second. How much does the hotel take out of you? $400. He goes, none of it. So what's in it for the hotel?
Okay.
He said, I have to pay $500 at the beginning of the month just for the privilege of being here. And I thought, how many people... It's like if I was advertising for a job at the Performance Partnership and said, right, if you've got a job at the Performance Partnership, we'll pay you on results only, and you've got to pay me 500 quid for showing up to work. I don't think we get very many responses, you know. And yet, you know, that's probably the reason why the majority of people aren't making 10 grand a month. One is they're not willing to take the risk of putting up $500 or 500 quid for the opportunity. But then also, you know, it's this thing, Ricky achieved it because, you know, it's like, I got from him, what is the secret of achieving every single goal? Keep going until you have it. And that applies to everything, whether it be life, whether it be money, whether it be relationships, or whether it be presenting. How do you achieve every single presenting goal? How do you achieve every single dream that you could possibly have as a presenter? Keep going until you have it. And it always works.
So true, yeah.
Simple enough.